You know, it's not every day on this channel that I get to talk to local heroes of my hometown, Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada, and that's exactly what we got to do here with Jay Myers, Stef, Yvonne, and Eric of Bold Commerce. We're here talking about the first customer story from a startup that started, like a lot, in a garage all the way to a company that's 400 employees deep and recently raised 22 million bucks. Wasn't always so fancy. This story was particularly important to me because I got to see in my own hometown this startup go from nothing to something. I got to meet the founders, I got to hear their story, I got to see them scale. Jay was also able to tell the story in significant detail of their first customer, and you won't find a better story than this one. We walked through how to identify a good opportunity, how to solve a problem as an entrepreneur. We walked through the importance of culture, business model, and actually not raising capital too soon. Jay is the kind of founder that we should all strive to be. And honestly, just the fact that I got him on the First Customer Club podcast is the definition of success for me in the first place. Enjoy the episode, everybody.
Lights, camera, traction.
Tell me how you got started in e-commerce, because I understand that if we rewind a little bit, 350 employees ago, you were starting off in another commerce company. You noticed an opportunity. Kind of tell me how you got your feet wet.
Yeah, well, so I started my first online store in 1998. I was 18 years old, and I grew up in a family business selling archery supplies. And so in 98, I started building a website using Microsoft Front Page, and didn't even have a cart. It was just like I uploaded the products, and I put a price, and there was a phone number to call an order. I got a cell phone at Future Shop, and I would like wear it on my belt as I walked around, just waiting for it to ring because it was a specific number just for the website. Probably, I think it took like 3 or 4 months before I made a sale. But I remember the first one. I was at a friend's house, and bunch of people were over, and the phone rang, and I grabbed a napkin. I took the order, wrote down the credit card number on the napkin, and not PCI compliant, of course, but that was my start. And so fast forward a whole bunch, like there was a lot that happened in between. But I ended up like building stores, and like I had a whole e-commerce company with employees and a warehouse, and we were shipping stuff all over the world, and actually did pretty well. But it wasn't like we were doing a lot of sales, but it wasn't profitable. So I ended up shutting it down in around 2010. And I had actually never worked for someone, because I grew up in a family business. So I guess I worked for my dad technically, but like I had never applied at a regular company. So it was my first time where I had to get a job, so to say. And so this local company, which I just found out before the podcast here, that you worked at very briefly as well too, before COVID hit. And so at the time it was Hippo FM, now it's Hippo CMMS, but they were looking for an SEO specialist. And I had really become really good at SEO, building all these sites. And I remember I didn't write a resume, but I just took a whole bunch of screenshots of searches in Google for all the products I sold. And I said, here's like 30 products I sell, and here's me ranking above the company that manufactures them. And so it was just like a PDF of all these searches. And I said, this isn't a resume, but here's my background, and here's what I've done. And if you want to chat, and the person emailed me back, right, and they're like, you're hired, when can you start? Kind of thing. So I guess at the time, like, even still, like SEO is not something it's not like taught in university. Now there's like SEO agencies, but it was kind of something that like evolved. And so what I didn't know, actually, a little bit of backstory on Hippo, which you know a bit about, they were basically funded by a parent company that was a architect firm.
Right.
And they were like within weeks of actually closing up. And because I started, actually not weeks, maybe months. Because I remember when a couple of weeks after I started, the person that hired me basically said, okay, we hired you on this grant that we got, and we can pay you for like 3 months or 4 months. And basically, if the company's not profitable, we're going to close it up. But we want to be transparent and let you know. And I was like, well, that's fine. I'm not going anywhere. Let's stay here and give it the best shot we can. And I guess word kind of got out that like the time was ticking on the money. Like they had a big investment, and they my investment, like it was the owner's money. They kind of said like, we're going to spend, they had spent like at that time, like $500,000 to kind of get it going. And they said like, okay, this is how much we're going to spend. That's our runway. When it runs out, we're done. And I guess kind of word got out amongst the employees, and one by one, like every single person quit except for me and one other guy. And, I was the SEO guy, but I was also doing like working with their website and doing some things, and everyone quit. Like, so we had no one left, and I was like, well, I'm not going anywhere. And I started doing all the sales. I started going to flying to like buildings and like doing facility audits. And I'm not an engineer. And I would for those who don't, like, Hippo FM is a facility maintenance software, which is now computerized maintenance management software is what it stands for. But we slowly got it back going. And I don't know, the company now is probably like 30 people ish, 40 people. And they're doing great, but I'm super happy that I played a small part in that when it was like right on its lifeline to keeping it in. And now it's actually a Manitoba success story, Hippo FM. Like they've done really well.
And they were acquired last year by a
Correct.
Texas-based company. So yeah, I guess that's the full cycle. And it was early years, I understand, were really challenging, right? It wasn't just like immediate traction, immediate, scalability. It took them a while,
Yeah, we felt, I mean, we sold it to big clients. I sold it to HBO, and we were flying to New York, and it was like, what HBO didn't know was it was like two of us in an office. And, right. But we had Hippo was a really good product, and it was actually, they were forward thinking on a lot of ways that they approached it with their graphical interface. And, at the time that was very advanced. And, so like HBO bought into it, and we got a few really good flagship customers like that, and then that helped kind of start rebuild the trust and that kind of social proof of these large authorities. So but the thing was, so the whole time, so when I shut down the stores in 2010, so a quick bit of backstory on that, I was shipping all these products for my e-commerce stores up to Canada, and then 99% of the customers were in the US, so I was shipping it back. So I had this high overhead of getting things up here and then back down. And so companies in the States could ship to a customer and have like 25% room of margin for me to ship stuff up, ship it down. Like, it was very hard for me to be competitive. So I had to do a lot of volume. And that's why when I was saying it wasn't profitable. So I ended up, I kept trying to convince the manufacturers to ship directly to the customer. We use the term drop shipping now, and everyone knows about that. But at the time, that was kind of like a new concept. Right. And I would ask the manufacturers like, hey, I'm going to sell these through our website, but instead of you shipping them to us, you ship them directly to the customer, and we'll create the sale and we'll pay you. And the feedback I got from the manufacturers was, well, that doesn't seem right. It doesn't seem right that seems shady. Like now that's common practice to ship directly to a customer. There's nothing shady about it, but like it was like
unless if you do something other than that, right?
Right. So they didn't want to do it, and so that was fine. So then I started at Hippo to pay the bills. But then right away I got an email from the biggest distributor we were working with, and he said, "You know what? We're going to try this drop shipping thing for you." So I had closed down all the sites. So I started again from scratch. I literally started from scratch again. And so the platform I picked was Shopify. My sites previously were on a different platform, and I had just heard about Shopify. So I was like, I'll give it a try. Reincorporated a new company, got a new merchant account. And that at that time, that wasn't easy, because like Stripe and all these ones that are easy to get, they didn't exist. So to get a merchant account back then, there was like 5 major ones, like the Moneris, Chase Payment Tech, Global Payments, Avalon, First Data. And all of these, like, you have to like guarantee it with your house, and like it was very hard to accept credit cards. So anyways, went through all that process, rebuilt the site. I was waking up every morning at 4 or 5 in the morning, working for like 4 hours before going into Hippo, and then working at Hippo all day, coming home, and then working again. I didn't have kids then, so I could do that. So, and then launched the new site, and it actually started taking off and started doing really well. But one of the things that Shopify had was they had this app store, and they were actually really the first e-commerce company that had that. It was like if you wanted, well, at the time it wasn't really for functionality. It was more like integrations. Like if you want to integrate your store with QuickBooks, or integrate it with UPS, or integrate it with some other third, like a email.
It
Actually, the way
and stuff, right? They didn't think about the partnerships in the ecosystem for the front end. It was more the back end integrations, right?
correct. The way that I actually heard about Shopify was from an email from MailChimp. So I got an email from MailChimp saying, "Hey, we now integrate with Shopify." And I actually was like, "What Shopify?" So I clicked on the link and saw Shopify, and I was like, "Oh, these stores look pretty legit." Like some of their examples. So I, yeah, like they were all integration apps. But like me being a merchant for 12 years prior, all I'm thinking is, how can this app store help stores sell more? So like the first app I wanted to build was, I sold sporting goods equipment. It was like backpacks and archery. It was all like outdoor stuff. So I wanted a product comparison app. So you pick 3 or 4 products, you pull it up, and you compare features and stuff. So I'm not a developer, but I have a few friends that are, I'm condensing the story here quite a bit, but 3 other friends that are like 2 amazing developers. One's a designer, and we all kind of came together and we said like, hey, let's just try this for fun. See if we can make a little beer money on the side. Like it was really, we didn't know what to expect because it was quite early on. And we said, well, what's the easiest app we can build? Because we thought the product comparison app might've been too tough to start to first. So we thought, well, let's just build an upsell app. Like you add something to the cart and an upsell offer comes up, like you're buying a leather jacket and then an offer says, would you like the leather treatment kit? So we built a very, very basic version of that. And I guess 2 things we didn't realize, because being successful, if anyone ever doesn't say that there's some luck involved, they're lying or they're trying to take too much credit. So we definitely had some luck. There was a lot of timing that was right. Like Shopify it was very early days with them. The concept of an app store was early days. And we were able to build a lot of functionality that didn't exist yet. Like now there's dozens of upsell apps in the app store. But at the time, we couldn't. Yeah, there you go. So this seems like a very simple concept to build an upsell app. And funny thing is, we're still working on it today. But now it's leveraging like AI and machine learning to automate the upsells. And there's upsell and cross sell funnels. So you can, when someone says yes to something, it can offer them another product. They say no, it downsells them. Yeah. So then there's cross sells. So like upsells actually replace the previous product. A cross sell adds to it. There's all these complexities to an upsell, but initially we were just naive and we're just like, oh, let's just build an upsell. But the other thing we got really lucky about is we were the first people that ever used the Shopify's APIs on the front end of a store.
Right.
Every app, like you said, was integrations. So we kind of lucked out there, but that was just because we were thinking, how do we build apps to make more money? Not us, but to make merchants more money. So it was Shopify actually wasn't sure if they liked it or not. They at first thought, well, no, you can't use our APIs on the front end. What if a store has 1 million visitors? It'll take down our servers. And that happened multiple times. One of the first early big customers of Shopify was the Chive. Keep Calm and Chive On, those guys. And so they used our upsell app, and every time they ran a big promotion, all of Shopify would go down. But at the time, that was about 20,000, 30,000 stores. Now they have 1 million. So the Shopify didn't like it because they thought, well, you can't use our APIs on the front end. This isn't how they are designed. They're designed for like back-end integrations. Long story short, but merchants loved it, of course. So Shopify came up with ways to throttle API calls and put in a bunch of other methods that app developers like us could use their APIs, and Shopify wouldn't go down if someone had a Super Bowl commercial. So fast forward now we have like 20 something apps, but so that was a little bit of luck. Like we didn't think we were doing anything super innovative. We were just trying to solve a problem for merchants and scratching our own itch, I guess, right? It was like, because I had a store, it's like, well, this would help me make more money if I could upsell. So we scratched that itch, and yeah.
Yeah, so you scratched your own itch, and it's interesting to hear exactly where that idea originated. You know, how were you able to identify that this was an opportunity worth tackling? Because there's opportunities everywhere. You probably noticed dozens of opportunities around these days, right? Because you were doing drop shipping before drop shipping was a term. You were, you were dealing with merchant accounts before they were easy to acquire. So you were definitely an early adopter using all these tools. How, if you were to look at this from a framework perspective, how do you recognize a good opportunity? What constitutes as an opportunity that's worth kind of addressing? Because I know that you kept your job for a period of time. You didn't just jump ship and start Bold Commerce. You guys sort of, you danced around it for a while. You got out a product. You saw how it performed. You slowly started scaling up. But what does a good opportunity look like?
A good opportunity is when 3 circles overlap. And the 3 circles are when there has to be market opportunity. There has to be some demand, some reason, some problem it's solving. There has to be domain knowledge or authority or some reason. So like there could be market opportunity, but we don't have the domain. Like if we didn't know anything about e-commerce, like luckily I had some background in e-commerce, so that was the domain knowledge. And then you have to have the skill to actually do it. And then so I actually think that Bold wouldn't be what it is if it was just me. Like it was the 4 partners of us actually kind of helped create that, the 4 of us together. So I think a perfect market opportunity is when those 3 circles, like a Venn diagram kind of thing, like overlap. And in the middle, you've got this opportunity. So there's market potential, or there's a gap in the market, or a need not being met. You have some domain knowledge in it, and that domain knowledge is experience. Maybe you're passionate about this area. Maybe there's something, but there's some type of domain knowledge, and you have the expertise to be able to do it. There needs to be a potential viable business model around it too. I don't think you have to figure that out on day one though, but like there has like some way that like people can pay for whatever this opportunity is. But yes, those 3 things have to kind of overlap, and then you have an opportunity.
Yeah, totally agree. So you recognize the opportunity, you rounded up a designer and 2 developer friends of yours, and you started building this out of one of your basements, as I understand. Can you walk me through what those very early days were in terms of how you guys actually sold your first app upsell? How did you get that first customer? How did you guys decide what to build? Do you remember those very early transactions?
Absolutely. I so well too. Yeah, it was like, so I was like one basement after another. So Ivan was the first. There's 4 partners, myself, Ivan, Eric, who are brothers, and Stef.
Well, they're brothers. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Cool.
Well, originally it was just me, Stef, and Ivan, and Ivan said, I got to bring my brother in here too. He's a really good developer. He'll help. And then again, like it's one of those things, like in hindsight, I look back and like Bold wouldn't be what it is without Eric. Like everything kind of happens for a reason. But Ivan built the first app, Upsell. And so like, I guess you could, like he did it in his basement by himself. We were like, nobody quit their jobs at this point. We were all still working. Like we have a picture of him with his laptop. It's like 2 a.m. and there's a baby laying on his chest, and he's coding and building Upsell. And I think it's on our wall somewhere at Bold, or it's been in many slideshows and different things. So, yeah, like I don't think there's some people that say, entrepreneurship or building a business is jumping off a cliff and figuring out how to make a parachute on the way down. And you have to have this like make or break, all or nothing. Like you should quit your job and only have enough money in your bank account for 4 months. So you have to get this business going or you die. Like, I don't believe that. I think there's a lot, in especially today, like with like computers, like you can do things on the side. Like it's not like you have to open up a shop and be standing behind a counter for 8 hours a day. Like you can experiment and try different things on the side, and they may or may not work. And there's like crazy stats, like I think it's like 60% of America has another source of income other than their primary job. So like people are doing side hustles. That might just be freelance work just to pay some vacation money every year, or it might be something you hope to one day potentially turn into a business, or it might be a mix of both and it's an experiment and you don't know.
You guys did it in a way that your risk seems like it was limited all the way through, right? You guys didn't start off by raising, a large seed round right away. You guys didn't start off by risking a heck of a lot other than a bunch of your time and sweat and tears, right? You guys did it very strategically and really you never were at that spot where you had to eat ramen noodles as a full course of your diet, right? Were you guys able to, and about the business model, I definitely want to get into that, because what it seems like is you found a way to sell something and to start making money for something pretty quickly. Like, I'm not saying it ramped up as quickly as it seems from an outsider's perspective, but you guys were able to start making money that ultimately let one by one you start leaving your day job in order to focus on Bold. What was that like?
Yeah. So just to go a step back too, because you were asking about our first customer.
Yeah.
And then I'll kind of go into we have this really funny story of our first customer. So when we launched our first app, we did everything we could to rush it and get it out, and it was basically like a complete failure by most measures. The app sort of functioned. We forgot to upload any sorts of instructions. I can't remember. There's like certain pages that like it was the first person that installed it, and I remember the company was Susie's Hair Care was the website. And it was a man that runs it, but the website was Susie's Hair Care. He left this like really horrible negative review. I remember we installed it. We kind of all sat around because we have this like dashboard you can see when someone installs, and we waited and it wasn't right away, but we did get an install that day though, like the first day we launched it, because it's in an app store, so you're probably going to get one. Like it wasn't like anyways. And then they've got the install, and then we're like cheering, we're all happy, and then like an hour later, this horrible big long review. This is the worst app. Be warned, everyone, don't install this. It's blah blah blah. Like, so from that point, like we retooled the whole app. We rethought our whole approach. We had to think about like customer service first, building it in a way that is going to be user friendly. How are we going to, like, we changed everything. We basically scrapped the app, rebuilt it, and within a few days had a new version up. We ended up turning around that review from a negative into a positive. That person is still a customer of ours today. They still use our apps. And actually they're usually an early adopter for most of our apps. When we release a new app, they're one of the first ones to install it. But I think it's important, this story, because I think the thing that you have to do this always, but especially early on, is you have to be intimate with your early customers. And we kind of did it. We were forced to, because it was negative reviews. So we had to I reached out to every single person that left any type of review, any negative review, anything. So because I did all the support myself. So I was really, really intimate, and not just me, like all the other founders as well too. Like we were like sometimes working till 2 a.m, fixing a problem for merchant, and like Eric and Ivan we would be messaging because they're the developers. They were fixing something, and then Stef was helping make it like the UI nice for it. But like we were hands-on fixing every problem. So we learned how people use it. It's basically like QA, we like real time. But the first, I feel like the first 100 customers you have, you should know almost by first name. Like maybe 10 years later, you don't have to remember the first names, but like as they buy your product, like get to know them, like learn from them, ask them questions, watch how they use it, get feedback. they will be what kind of sets the trajectory of how you handle service, but also like the trajectory of your product. Like it's no one ever releases a product and it's just exactly right. Like almost every software company has some story of, well, we launched it, but we saw them using it like this, so we changed it, right? Like it's,
Yeah.
I
Did
don't
you
know.
guys have a process for how you did reach out to those first 100 customers? Like, were you guys doing phone calls? Were you guys sending emails? What did you notice was the most effective way to kind of get that feedback? I would imagine that you got a lot, because that's the nice thing about an early adopter, right? They want to tell you things. Like, I used to always think like, oh, like I'm not paying them for this feedback. Why do they want to contribute it? Just because they do, right? Just because they're
Mhm.
excited about a new tool that's going to increase their conversion rates on their website, just because they're naturally tech savvy, most early adopters, right? They want the next greatest thing. So you probably had an audience that was very willing to give you feedback. I'm curious, what did you do to actually get the feedback? And kind of to add on to what you're saying, what actionably did you guys do with it? It probably changed your scope for your product. It probably changed everything, right?
Yeah, there is never a problem getting feedback from customers. And if anyone tells you that, um, they've got issues. And and here's like what I have found is a lot of people, software specifically, they build software, they build a tool, and then they try to figure out ways to not support it, which blows my mind. Like they try to figure out like how can we have everything through bots and automation and FAQs, and we're going to leverage this help desk software that uses AI to like as they're typing in a search, we're going to like this is all great, all that stuff is, but we didn't have any of that. All we had was people, and so like every single person that emailed and probably every person that installed an app had like a question at one point, so they would email, they'd have a question, and we would get on the phone or email back and forth or jump on a chat. Um, like if you're willing to talk to customers, they will talk your ear off and give you every idea, tell you all their pain points. And if you're just giving support to a customer because they have a question, and if you just said, "Hey, do you have any other thoughts on our software or any other thoughts?" They're like, "Well, I'm glad you asked," because like they will have thoughts. There is no shortage of opinions. Like if you're thinking of some software you're using, like we're using Zoom right now, you probably have an opinion on something on that. Like if you use Slack at work, you probably like whatever you use, you probably have an opinion on. So there's no problem with that. I think the main issue is too many companies try to put walls between them and their customers, and we're seeing that change now. Like that's becoming less of a trend, but it used to be, how do you like hire third party companies to do your customer support and different call centers, and how do we like at one point we started to think like, well, how can we create all these docs so that we can outsource our customer support, and then we just kind of like gave our heads a shake, and we're like, this isn't who we are, like this isn't what we want to be.
Especially in
So
the early days too, right? Where you probably care more about the feedback than the actual revenue on a per customer basis. So you have all these companies now that are like, they're startups and they're like, how do I automate my social media posts? How do I install chatbots? It's like, I feel like they're thinking about it the wrong way, right?
yeah, 100%. So I mean, just be real and talk to your customers. They will want to talk to you. There's no issue getting them to speak their mind. And then like we used various methods for documenting everything from like spreadsheets to different tools to document feature requests. But then we met frequently. I think like back then it was, so now like our product management team now, they have full systems of how feature requests come in, because we have 100 support people. Feature requests come in through all the channels. They log them in Jira, and there's different ways that it can be tagged as like if it's a bug, if it's an issue, if it's a potential improvement, is it critical, is it how many stores is it affecting, 1 or 10,000, and then we prioritize based off of that. But early on it was just like throw everything in a bucket. Twice a month, let's meet and talk about all these features, which ones would make the most merchants happy, and prioritize it that way. Like that was really it early on.
Yeah, no doubt. How did you guys do the delicate dance between the side hustle and the full-time startup? So I know that, maybe you can fill the audience in on the backstory, but just to put it into perspective, I'm going to put this picture up. You guys,
Oh
you guys
man, how do you
didn't
find
start,
all these?
you guys didn't start in an office that was, that was necessarily what it looks like today. Uh,
Where are you getting all these?
well, I never told you I was a side hustle is investigation services. So
There you go.
I'm happy to
Okay.
put up some embarrassing pictures of your office space before you moved into this bad boy. But
Yeah.
you
So
guys,
this one, the first one there was Eric's. This is my basement.
this is
so
your
Eric, so our thought process, this was very scientific, was we thought, um, well, so Eric had just had a baby. My wife was 5 months pregnant. Yvonne had a baby, and basically all of our wives, I think between the four of us, we had attempted, started, or run 17 other companies before this. So our wives were they're super supportive, but they all kind of said, okay, you guys can do this thing, but don't quit your jobs until you can at least pay yourself what you're making now or something. Or like, cause like I like this house that we're in, like I had just bought it a couple months before, and I had a 5 month pregnant wife and a mortgage, and she's just like, okay, just like as long, like don't quit at Hippo until this. So and like Hippo was they were the best people ever there. Like even when I did leave, I gave a 3 month notice, and that was actually when I hired a few other people, trained them. Like it wasn't just like a quick thing. I think as business owners, we all respect companies we work for, and we know that we want to have, like, if so, like we've had multiple people leave Bold to start other companies, and we encourage it. We think that's fine, that's great, and people are going to do it, and like we help people do it. All we ever ask is like, hey, give us like heads up so we can train. And we've actually even helped some people get started, and we mentor some people who are running their business. Like this is who we are. Like we're entrepreneurs, and we encourage that. So but as far as, yeah, like we all kept working, and we worked in the mornings and the evenings. And I think as long as you're not, stealing time from your company, like I think if you're working at a job and trying to do something else, like you should be giving your time to the company you're working from. I actually think of it, I don't know, I actually think of it as theft if you're not. If you're that, and I guarantee a lot of people do this but don't consider it theft, but this is just the way I was raised. But like if you work somewhere and you're on Facebook for 45 minutes and you're getting paid $20 an hour, I consider that like that's like stealing, right? That's like stealing $15 from your employer. Like you wouldn't go and take $15 out of your company's bank account. But if you're being paid, or if you have to do something, then just let your manager know, like, I'm not going to be working for this hour. So that's the gray area. I think it's perfectly fine. And we actually tell, so we at Bold, we have what we call it innovation time. We actually give our staff, it works out to 10%. But so it's like half a day a week, or every 2 weeks, a full day, where they can actually work on anything they want. And a lot of them, the majority, they actually run stores, which I think is awesome, because then they're running e-commerce stores and they're using our apps. But we have had, there are a few of our staff that are actually making substantial money on their side hustle, on their store. And there's a potential that like they might one day say, hey, you know what, I'm making a decent enough income that I think I'm going to leave Bold and just try to do this e-commerce thing full time. And we would like celebrate that. The only thing that like we ask is like, hey, like while you're working on Bold stuff, like focus on Bold stuff. So we actually give time to do, like, if you need to like check emails for your store that you're running on the side, that's okay. Just do it like during your time. So, be fair to the employer you're working for. But I think that's kind of becoming the new norm of how people are starting companies. They're starting it as a side. It's not like quit your job, jump all in. It's make it or break it. Yeah, it doesn't have to be that way.
Yeah, and you're a shining example of exactly that.
Thank you. I guess
when you guys did, so transitioning through the story, you guys started to ramp up. You went from someone's basement to your house, and from your house across the street in Ile-des-Chênes, You guys had the garage or the full building. I don't know what it was called, but I think 1,500 square feet. I
Mhm.
guess that's a big jump up, right? I remember you guys had, I came and visited you there. You have all these arcade machines. You got that one with the, what's it? The shooting one with the orange gun. What's that
Buck
called?
Hunter. We still have it.
There we go. Awesome. So you guys start.
Someone erased my high score too. I'm really pissed about that.
Oh no. You mean they erase it or did they beat it?
I think it got reset. Yeah, good one. Yeah.
Well, that was one thing you guys really focused on early on was culture, right? As I understand, you were the first company in our province to hire someone specifically for the role of culture. It's not just in the amenities, it's not just in the, lunch buffets and, flex time, but you guys have gone a little bit above and beyond that. And you've already explained that a little bit, Jay, just in terms of that, I would call it the new school mentality of, we're not going to force you to only do our stuff. Just be a successful human, give time where time needs to be given. And if you go on and succeed, like, great, we'll support you. Well, heck, we'll invest in you if it makes sense, right? What was kind of, to you, the most important thing you guys set straight early in terms of culture when you did start to hire?
You know what's interesting about culture is they just surveyed a year or two ago of I think it was all Fortune 500 companies, and they had to rank in order of importance of what they thought would affect the company's success over the next 5 years or something. There was like corporate governance, executive competence, financial restrictions or industry regulations, or market opportunity or company culture. They had all these different things. 80% of companies said that company culture would be one of the most significant or the significant impacts on the success of their company.
Yeah.
And then they ranked the same list. I can share this, but the same list in order of like what they spend the most time on. And it was like company culture was less than, like, the average company spent less than 5% of time talking about it. I can get the exact stat. Actually, I have it up here. So like, I think everyone realizes that culture is important, but for whatever reason, people don't spend time on it. Oh, here it is. So yes, the most important, this was Duke University study. The most important drivers of success, corporate culture was ranked number one, then strategic plan, then operating plan, then who the CEO is, then the marketing, then the production process, then finance function. But less than, where's that on the next one? But I think less than like 10% of companies spent any time actually working on their culture, but they believed it was one of the most important drivers of success.
Wow.
So culture is, it's interesting. You mentioned like you associated with video arcade games with culture, because I actually don't think the two are connected at all. Culture, like we do a lot of things to make our employees' lives better, to make them happy, like to make us happy. Like we said when we started the company, if we wanted to build a place that we enjoyed working at too. Being happy at work is really important. Perks are great, but it's not culture. So to take a little bit of a step back here, what culture is if you look at the word, like, culture is just a shared set of beliefs, and you can put 1,000 people on an island, and they will slowly over time group up by shared sets of beliefs, values, principles. And then you might have like a tribe over here and a tribe over here, but it's going to be people with shared sets of beliefs. They're like-minded on things. They naturally, and then they'll say like, well, the culture of this tribe is this, the culture of this is this. So what that means in a business is a company with a strong culture. Here's a saying you could say, and if this is true, that then you have a strong culture. Like, in the absence of management or leadership, if your staff or your team can make decisions without having to refer to what a policy is, then you have a strong culture. That means you have strong values, you have strong principles, and you don't need to say, well, let me check the policy book on that. That means you have a lot of policies and regulations, but you don't really have culture. And
if they want to follow them too, right? I would say it's not just do they know what to do, but do they want to do it at the same time?
totally. Like a great example, I use this is like if you're flying, which a lot of people I guess aren't doing right now, but this happened to me once. I asked for an extra pillow, and the flight attendant said, "I'm sorry, sir, it's one pillow per person." And I said, "Okay," but I could see like 20 pillows up in the overhead thing, and no one else was using one, and so I didn't get an extra pillow. Where, obviously, like they have this policy of one pillow per person, but they, instead of having that policy, they could have a principle, and the principle could be, do everything you can within your power to make travelers happy, as long as it's not hurting any other guests on the plane, right?
Right.
Like if that was their principle and their values, like they wouldn't even have to say like, "I'm sorry, sir, our policy is whatever it is." So, we have a lot of principles and values that drive the company, like what we value, what our principles, where we want to go. And so like if someone's out on a work trip, like you shouldn't have to say like, "How much am I allowed to spend on this steak?" or "How many drinks am I allowed to order?" "How many this?" Like, what's the print? Like, if you were traveling on your own, would you order the most expensive steak or the cheapest one, or like, or an average one? Or would you have 20 drinks, or would you have two? Or like, it just always baffles me when, someone's like, "Well, this is on the work card," or "Oh, this is on this." And like they obviously have very weak culture and principles and values that they're like trying to, anyways, go on a rant about it. But culture is, it's really important. And culture is how it bleeds into the details of every single employee. So like if you have a culture of like our dev teams, like how they develop, like it's, like we're very merchant first, and we believe, like Eric, who's one of the founders, our CTO, like I love like a sign he has in his office. It says merchants first, then tech. And it's very easy as a software company to think it's all about the coolest technology, and are we doing this in the latest version of, I'm not a developer, so I can, whatever it is, but like the latest. And like merchants don't care. They want it to work, to be reliable, to be robust, to scale with them, to be user friendly, and to make them more money, right? So we make decisions based off of what's best for the merchant, not what's best for us. Like as far as like whatever language we use for development, for like, of course we make the best decisions we can for that, but those values, they bleed through everything. But then to touch on your point of like the arcades and stuff, like that comes up all the time. Like we do a lot to make our, like we have, well, we're in the office, full catered lunches every day. We have like VR rooms and gyms and hair, like just like everything, like beer kegs and like and that's all good, but that's not culture. That's like trying just to make it an enjoyable place to work. That there's a lot of data that like when employees are happy at work, when they enjoy work, when they have a friend at work, they actually are more productive. And so those are good things to do. Like I wouldn't like whenever people always come in like, "Oh my goodness, you guys got all this, like you guys have great culture here." We're like, no, but we like to make it a happy place, because people are more productive when they're enjoying work. So the two do go hand in hand, and both are important, but that's how we see the difference.
Yeah, no doubt. I love that example. And perhaps it helps you that you're building a team not in San Francisco from this perspective. Like, probably pros and cons of doing it. It's probably less important now than ever before to be in Silicon Valley in order to be a Silicon Valley-esque company, right? But when you guys are going out of your way to build culture, and you get that word of mouth spread about how happy people are in their job, and all of a sudden you see entrepreneurs going to work at Bold that are happily employed there a few years later, there's, in this area, I can't think of any, there's a couple, but there's very little direct competition, because you guys are so culture focused, because you guys do have all these other things that they don't, and because it's a really cool company. So I just want to know briefly if you have any thoughts in terms of building bold commerce in Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada, versus what it would be if you were in a tech center. I know that you have relocated or added another office in Austin, Texas. So maybe that kind of shapes your mind too in terms of the expansion.
Yeah, it's gonna. Well, bold would not be what it is. It would probably be fine, but I don't like. Winnipeg was a huge blessing to be in. Like, Winnipeg is a fantastic city. Canada's an amazing country. There's so many positives about where we're located. I almost don't like saying it, because then other companies are going to come here. Honestly, it's an amazing city. And for so many reasons, like, one, I remember a couple of years ago, like, Facebook had one of the best tenures, and it was like what the average, like 1.2 years or something like that, like, was the average. And like, that just blows my mind that that's considered like really good out there. And people are very loyal in Winnipeg. Like, our turnover was like, it's like not nil, but like very, very low. And so, like, after an employee has been at the company for a couple of years, they're extremely productive. Like, they know the ins and outs and all the little quirks of everything. Like, to have people make it past that year mark, and for like a large percentage of your company to do that, like, it just makes productivity so much better. Honestly, like, the cost of doing business is a lot less in Winnipeg. Just like our building is a quarter of the cost, and salaries are less, cost of living is less, like, everything is. So we can be, like, when we were 100 people, if we were in San Francisco, we might be 30 people. When we were 200, we might. So we're competing against all these companies all over the world, and we're able to be twice the size. And the talent in Winnipeg is really good. I think some of the things that maybe Winnipeg might be weak on is the depth of some specific roles. And so for like, and we've augmented our location in Winnipeg now with Austin, and we're finding this to be actually a really good scenario. We will continue to grow in Winnipeg. Winnipeg will be our home. We're not leaving here. This is some great shots from out in Ilshane. That was before we all had gray hair and went bald. And
yeah, I did notice the difference between this picture and
yeah.
You guys aged a little bit.
That's about 3 or 4 years between the two. Yeah, I mean, I still look exactly the same in both pictures. Where was I going with sorry, lost my train of thought with those.
I'm sorry,
those pictures coming.
I'm still trying to balance.
No, it's good. It's good.
And
Winnipeg versus augmenting roles. Yeah, like, so there's certain roles that are hard to find in Winnipeg. Like, if you're looking for someone with, like, this actually just came up. Like, we're looking for someone with 10 plus years, in the SaaS space, leading a partnership team. So, like, we have a partnership team, and we were looking for someone with 10 years experience, who specifically with SaaS partnerships. Like, that's very hard to find in Winnipeg. Like, how many companies in Winnipeg have been in the SaaS industry for 10 years and have a large partner team? So, but in Austin, it was like a ton of people like that fit that mold. So we were able to, so it's not like the talent in Winnipeg is really good. There's just some roles that are harder to find here. But I don't think like that means like, yeah, an ideal scenario is just now leverage the different areas. And we're experimenting with this remote stuff too. We're going to see how it goes. Like, we're not jumping on the bandwagon of saying we're fully remote now. And I don't, it's going to be interesting to see how a lot of these companies, how they stand by what they're saying now in a couple months. I think we'll see. Like, there's a lot of people I know that are, they're really hurting working from home, and they live in 600 square foot apartments, and they're working with their spouse, and they don't have a desk, and they're both working on the kitchen table, or they're working from their couch, and they're having back problems because some of them are really suffering from mental illness because they are energized from being around people. Like, everyone's different. And so I think a hybrid approach will eventually be what we end up doing. I don't know. Like, it's still really early and we're not making any statements around it, but like, but that also like makes it even better doing business in Winnipeg and now, maybe leveraging people other places. So
Yeah, if I was to make the statement that if you have customers and your customers are paying you for doing things, that every other problem is minuscule compared to it. You guys found a way to start making money. I know I mentioned this before, but let's jump into this. The making money part. I see that as a struggle that a lot of startups have because they have too few resources and they're trying to do too many things or need to, and they're not profitable enough to increase the resources adequately to take on this demand. It seems like it's a conundrum that a lot of startups get themselves in, probably because of strategic error. It seems like this has not been an issue for you because Bold has continuously been hiring essentially faster and faster in your history. Yeah, there's been some blips, but like in general, if you look at a macro view, you continue growing and you continue hiring and you continue scaling. You've raised $22 million now. It's going to help a lot with that. But you guys were able to start this like from 4 co-founders on upwards. How have you been able to build a business model that's allowed you to grow? And do you have any advice for entrepreneurs out there that are struggling with having an appropriate business model that allows them to grow in the first place?
Yeah, I think, 2 thoughts on this. One, like back to the benefit of being in Winnipeg, Manitoba, like having investors is a great thing, but it can also be early on, it can also be a little bit of a, not a curse, but bit of a crutch is a better word.
Right.
We don't have a huge investment community in Winnipeg. It's just not like Silicon Valley where like I talk to friends out there who have an idea and in the same space we're in, and before they even launch, they've raised a couple $1,000,000 and they have 15 angel investors, and like that just doesn't happen here. So here we had to think about building a profitable product like from day one. It wasn't like, okay, we got millions in the bank and let's just worry about profitability later. That'll come. Let's build a product now. And like, and I actually think like a lot of investors are noticing this, that the Midwestern cities, the B cities, whatever you want to call them, focusing on being profitable early on is more of a thing than it blows my mind that like massive companies like Uber is not profitable, and companies like it's like they can get to that stage, which again, as long as like growth, as long as you're growing at a certain rate, the market will let you get away with that. But that's just like the Manitoba way. Like we think like, okay, I'm selling a product, like how is it profitable? It's not like how do I get 1 million people and then we'll figure out monetization later.
Well,
So
it seems like the fact that you guys, not to age you, but you guys also weren't 20 years old when you did this startup either, right? So
right.
it might have been an advantage, I'm thinking, because you have all this plethora of experience as opposed to that 20-year-old entrepreneur who's doing their first or second startup. And you guys had way more experience under your belts. But you guys had families, you guys had things going on, you guys had jobs, right? Maybe that's part of the issue is you have entrepreneurs that think like, I can sacrifice, I don't need to get paid. I can go another year eating ramen noodles. And you guys didn't have the luxury of making that decision. That might have made you a better startup structurally just because of your life circumstances. Maybe baggage helped.
Yeah, honestly, it's true. Like, having people that you are accountable for makes you think differently than when you're rolling the dice when there's no little birdie mouths you have to feed. So, I think too, it's important that like as a company, you kind of know what you want to be. There's different types of companies. Like I don't know what to try. There's like a lifestyle business where like you could run a business by yourself, be a solopreneur and make, a decent, I don't know what everyone's number of what's a decent income could be different. It could be $5,000 a month. It could be $10,000 a month. It could be whatever. And you could probably do that with like a one person team or a couple person, and that's a perfectly fine thing. We struggled with kind of like knowing who we were until maybe like 10 or 12 employees. Like every time we hired an employee, it was like, shoot, well, guess we have to if we want to keep growing. Like we were paying ourselves like the bare minimum we could pay, and like our wives would be happy. So we could pay our mortgages and stuff. But like every time we hired an employee, it's like, oh, okay, well, we won't pay ourselves anymore. We got to hire this person. And then we'd grow and grow, and like, we got to hire another person. It was like a painful process, and we weren't like celebrating like, yes, we're hiring another person. Because hiring that other person meant we couldn't like pay ourselves more, which is like, I don't know, when you're starting a business, you're like, okay, I'm going to build something that's successful. And that's like kind of part of the goal. Like the goal is to also solve an important problem, but ultimately it's to be a stream of income for you too. So anyways, we at one point realized like we had to decide what we wanted to be, like a lifestyle company, or sometimes it's referred to as a gazelle, which is just like a high growth company. And we maybe didn't care as much about being profitable or paying ourselves anymore, but we wanted to grow the company fast and as big as we could, so we could make the most impact in as many merchants as possible and as many staff as possible. So we decided that's the way we want to go, and then it was like full steam ahead. So like we've given a large portion of our company to all of our staff, and our goal is that one day if Bold goes public or there's some big event, that it drastically affects the lives of everyone working at Bold, not just the four of us. And that meant that like we couldn't give ourselves a raise for a long time, like the four of us, but we were able to like every time, like this was our calculation early on. It's very primitive. Now we have a CFO who's much more, but it was like, okay, we made this much more. Okay, I think we can hire 2 people this month. And then it was like our bank account would go like up and up and up, and then right back kind of down. Okay, sales would start going up. Okay, I think this month we can hire 3. It was like whatever extra money there was, we put it back into people. And so, yeah, and it was there's no right or wrong, and that doesn't like, I admire companies that are lean and small teams and very profitable, and there's a lot to be said for that too. So but what is important is that you've made a conscious decision who you are as a company, and then go that, because the worst part is we kind of lived in this like gray area in between where we didn't know, did we want to just be like 4 dudes in a basement like making a ton of money, or do we want to like maybe not worry about making a ton of money, let's build an amazing company that can affect like hundreds or thousands of people and do something in Winnipeg that maybe hasn't been done before. So you just have to know who you are and then run it.
That's pretty awesome. I'm going to have to send a link to this podcast episode to Stuart so he can hear exactly how primitive things were. He might have a good chuckle and
he knows how bad our books were before he came along.
That's one of the cool things about building a great big company is you can hire really, really smart people. And that must have just been a really cool journey for you guys in terms of, again, going from the garage, the basement, to now at a point where you're hiring some of the smartest people in their domain in the world. It's a very, very cool.
How do you know Stu?
I know him from the university.
Okay.
And we built a relationship there because I was an entrepreneur on campus through the Stu Clark Center for Entrepreneurship. He was running the show. And yeah, I got to build a relationship with him. I'm one of the only people I know that jokes around with him actively. And I think he laughs more at me than with me, but I long for those moments. So he is
great. He's hilarious. He every town hall or QSM, like we do these, when Stu comes up on stage, our whole company goes Stu, or Stu, like everyone cheers for him. It's probably pretty rare, like CFO comes up, he gets the loudest claps. So
wow. Well, I'm not going to link a picture up of him because then I know he'd shoot me, but shout out to Stuart.
Yeah. Awesome. I'll make sure he knows.
Exactly. We just have a few minutes left here, Jay. But a lot of people might say that, you decided to hitch your cart to Shopify. I know you've gone beyond the Shopify platform now. A lot of people might say that, they made you guys successful. I kind of look at it the other way and think that you guys probably did a lot to make them successful. Just sharing my screen here to see their valuation. How much do you think Bold Commerce has helped Shopify grow, and not just the other way around?
It's interesting. We have 100,000 merchants using our apps. Shopify has roughly 1 million stores, but of those million stores, at any given moment, probably 70% of them are not making money. Like they're people trying to get a store going. Prior to Shopify going public, and this is not exclusive to Shopify. This would be like a lot of platforms like this. Like I think it was like 80% of stores were making less than $500 a year. Lots has changed since then, so this might not be the case now, but there's a lot of people that have a store, they're trying to get it going. It's a little bit of a side income, but those stores probably aren't paying Bold a lot of money. So like the 100,000 stores that are using Bold to power some aspect of their commerce, I'm willing to bet that like almost all of the stores that are like actually legit large or making money are using one of our products in some way. Well, actually, we know that it's around 80% of all Shopify Plus stores. That's the largest stores. They have around 5,600, and as of a few months ago, it was like 3,900 of them. No, I think it was 4,200 are using a Bold product. So like we definitely impact a lot of their bigger stores, and by big I mean like ones that are like making money. So it's hard to say, but honestly, like that's the beauty of an ecosystem, and we wouldn't be what we are without them. They wouldn't be what they are without us, or not just us, like all their partners. The partners are what make Shopify great. Honestly, the ecosystem, like that's their biggest value add, and that comes up all the time. Now, a lot of other platforms have really good ecosystems too, but Shopify was the first, and they were the first ones that really got that right. And that was like, when you're comparing platforms, it was like BigCommerce, Volusion, Magento, and all the different ones, that Zencart. It changes every year, but it's like, these all have these features. Well, Shopify maybe doesn't have all the features, but they have this ecosystem of thousands of developers around it. And that's their moat. Like that's something that's really hard to replicate. And, there's a lot of things, like it's important as a software company to understand what your moat is. And, you look at Uber, like you could copy Uber. Uber's not that hard. You can make an app that could be Uber. But what you couldn't copy is the network of drivers in thousands of cities that's all set up. You could copy Facebook, but you couldn't copy the millions or billions of users using it. You could actually copy Shopify, be pretty easy, but you couldn't copy the 40,000 partners and agencies that have now adopted that as the platform that they build on. So that was something that Shopify got right early on. We played a small part in it, but there was a lot of other big partners that played a huge part in it as well. They announced when they went public that at the time, I think it was 58% of all their merchants they recognized as coming through a partner channel. So they went on Shopify because of a partner. So that might have been that they came through us because of a solution or a product that we made, or it could have been an agency recommending it. But the partner network is very important to Shopify.
Yeah. 30-second answer.
I'm not in that much of a rush, but we're a little flexible. So
I'll scale back a couple minutes. I'm just looking at the time and knowing, holy smokes, we have 1 minute left.
No, we're good.
All right. Sounds good. Yeah, no, that totally resonates with me. I think that you guys did just as much to build them as they helped you. Like, it's very interesting how you chose the right company to hitch your success to. And, you talk about getting lucky and, but I'm also hearing all the skill and all the experience and all the right decisions that you guys made strategically to hitch yourself to the right ideas, to address the right problems, to be involved in growing the ecosystem for the right partner. You guys did a lot of that extremely well. And yeah, I can't wait to see what you guys are doing in the years ahead in terms of that, how you guys are now growing beyond just Shopify. Do you have any thoughts in terms of your personal journey? Because I've asked about the business and I wanted to hear, I've always loved the expression that you've had, climb mountains, not so the world can see you, but so you can see the world. I want to know through the lens of perhaps that thought, how you've changed as a person and as an entrepreneur, starting from, hey, I have this idea to build this upsell app through to today.
Man, it's been a crazy journey for sure. I think like from personal, when there's a big difference between building an actual true company that and a company. It's probably why they call it company, because it's a company of people. It's a company of resources, and it's not just a like a person. And like so prior to Bold, the companies I had before I owned by myself, and that was a hard, like Bold is 4 founders, we're all equal owners. And so it's been great. Like it's been the number one key that we've been successful. And then it's expanded beyond that. So now we have an amazing executive team, like Stu is one of them. And we have a whole bunch of others. And like we've been blessed with like really amazing people. And like every year, what I do at Bold, gets smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. And like, it used to literally be like part of the reason, like I actually did our accounting. Like that was, Stu would laugh at that, but like I did all our accounting. I did all of our marketing. I did all of our support. I did
and
all of
I
our,
can't even
like,
find a title for you, right? I just know that you're a co-founder. I don't know what your C-level title is. I just know that you started the thing.
Right. And I think the companies that really grow, like you have to have founders that really get that and actually get excited about replacing themselves. Because like I acted as CMO for a while, and I ran the marketing team, and it was like a little bit hard when we would like anytime any founder like replaces what they do. There's 2 ways you could look at it. You could look at it like maybe you're not the best person for that job, or you could be so excited that someone better is doing it. Because at the end of the day, like your company is your investment. And if you took a step back off and took off your operator hat and put on your investor hat, like who do you want running the company? Like just because I had this idea for it, and maybe I might have been the best person at certain stages to run it, and all of the other founders would say the same thing too. Like Eric would say, like the day that he's not the right person to be the CTO, he would like help find the new one, because primarily Bold is our investment and our baby, and we want it to succeed. Like it's not for any like glory of us at all. Like, and that's and I actually think like the 4 of us, like if any of us God forbid were to get like hit by a bus or something, like Bold would be completely fine. And that to me has been a really incredible journey to see that happen. And to like, I can say like, I'm at so much peace with like, no matter what I do at Bold, I don't care what department, what team. I want to like, I have this mindset, like personally, I'm just like that. I have this mindset that I want to contribute wherever my value is useful. If that means like, I'm going to go work with the support team for a month and help them with something. Or like right now I'm working a lot with our marketing team and a bit with our partnerships team and helping them because I feel there's a lot of value I can add there. That's great. That maybe that'll be different in 6 months, but like I legitimately want to be where I add the most value. And I think a lot of companies, I like you can spot trouble in a second at a company when you see a founder in a role that they shouldn't be in, or they're not. And there's like a little bit of like pride or ego there. And like, that's danger zone. And I'm very thankful to be with the people we are at Bold, that everyone like Bold comes first and we all come second. And I think when that happens, we'll all be happy because that we have that mindset. So that was a bit of a journey to get there though, because coming from companies that like I owned myself, that to be able to say like, yes, I'm comfortable, you know what, these decisions, I don't actually even need to be involved in them. At first, you want to have your nose in everything, every meeting, every product decision, everything. Like, you want to kind of have your, and I was that guy. Like, I wanted to be involved in everything. And now I really like, I'm not involved in, like, you know, product roadmap, for example. Like, we have a director of product and he's amazing. And I completely trust him. And I sit in on all our quarterly, like, strategic plans for, like, long-term roadmap and stuff like that. And I'll pipe my input up. But it's ultimately not my call. And that's actually a reassuring thing. So
Yeah, if you sleep in the morning and you just don't show up for the day, it's like business still goes on. That must just be such a cool feeling, that which is so different than that early stage. It's like you sleep in, you show up, nobody even looks at you when you walk in. People obviously look at you because of who you are and your personality and everything, but you know what I mean? It's like you didn't
100%.
be there and you're still thriving and growing and scaling. That's to me, that's success right there, Jay.
That's when you've built a company and you're not just a proprietor, or like the company is an entity. And, you know, like, these legal terms that we use, they make sense when you start thinking about it, like entities and companies, and, like, it's because it is its own entity. So
Love it.
Yeah.
So we're approaching the very end here. I want to ask you, because I want to start getting more consistent in asking this exact question. But if there's an entrepreneur out there that's looking to find their first customer, do you have any advice or any framework, regardless of the industry? What would you say is the recipe out there to find your first customer?
You know, like, I've worked in a lot of different industries. You have to really care about the problem you're solving. And your first customer, like, don't be afraid. Like, I don't think it should come through mass advertising, in the sense of, like, through, like, I actually wouldn't want it to come through, like, AdWords or a Facebook ad or an Instagram ad.
I agree.
Because that's not, like, there's definitely a place for that, but your first customer should come. I actually think this would be an ideal scenario if I had to pick. And we actually did this I'll give you an example. Okay, so we have a product called Kick Booster, and it was the world's first affiliate software for Kickstarter and Indiegogo, like crowdfunding tools. And we partnered with a person that did it. And the way he built it was, the reason why you can't do, there you go. So the reason why it's hard to do an affiliate tool for crowdfunding tools is you can't put a script on a thank you page. So, like, when you back something on Kickstarter, there's no way to track that I clicked a link on a blog, backed it, and then I completed the backing and landed on the thank you page. So, like, attribution is hard. He figured out a really unique way to do it through Google Analytics tracking. So because you could have Google Analytics on a Kickstarter page, and we could kind of, like, it was actually like a really weird hack. But he pieced together a bunch of technologies to do it. He proved the concept, and then he made a landing page, and he kind of explained how to do it. And he charged, I think it was $300. So it was going to be this, like, packaged solution. And he actually sold, I think, like $10,000 worth of them. Like, he one by one emailed people on Kickstarter saying, hey, I'm launching this. It's going to be $300. We're going to launch it in a month. I can't remember what the timeline was or whatever, but he didn't have a product. And he ended up having to refund the $10,000. So it cost him the 3% processing fee. So it cost him $300 to get the ultimate proof that customers actually wanted his product. And I think in the end, we ended up building it. And then, is it unstable, my internet?
No, I'm just going this, like, cool
yeah.
realization, right? $300 to get that serious validation. It's beautiful.
Well, you know, the number one thing, like, everyone, if you tell your idea to anyone, everyone will say, that's a great idea. That's a great idea. And the next sentence that comes out of your mouth is, great, give me your credit card and I'll just take your credit card number and, like, you'll be my first customer. Wouldn't that be awesome? And they'll say, oh, well, it's not actually that good of an idea. Until someone takes their credit card out and says, you know what? I love that idea. I want to be your first customer. Here's my card. Charge me when you're done, like when you make it or when you build it. Until someone does that, you actually haven't validated that you have a really good idea. So, but those early customers, like, don't be like, we were tweeting people. I would go on Twitter and I would see someone that has Shopify used to have this thing. They called it New Store Friday. But now they have like thousands of stores launching per day. But at the time it was maybe only like, 5 stores a day. So they would tweet, welcome to Shopify, this store, this store, this store, and this store. And they tweeted their handles. And so I would follow them and then DM them and say, hey, noticed you just launched on Shopify. I'd love to, like, we just launched this upsell app. Would love it if you gave it a try. I'm one of the, we start anyways. And then they would DM me back. And I bet you like 20% of people would say, wow, cool. I'll check it out.
And you were the founder sending this message, not just a salesperson.
No,
right?
I did it myself. I had a spreadsheet and I kept everyone's Twitter handle. And every Friday when Shopify would tweet out New Store Friday, welcome to all these stores. I would message them, and if I would follow them. If they followed me back, I could DM them, and then I would try to say like, hey, if you want to try upsell, you can have it free for a month. I'd love to get your feedback. And like the stores were thankful. Like it wasn't a weird thing for them, but for those early stores, I really think it's important to like attack them one at a time, or not early stores, early customers. Like find them out, find like who is your ideal customer, and go after them, and and stay really close to them, and be a part of the whole process of selling it to them, messaging it to them. How do you talk to them? What's the language they speak? And then like do that for a while, figure out your whole product, because you probably have a ton of holes in whatever your product is. And the worst thing you can do is spend a ton of money on advertising, and then you just have a leaky bucket anyway. So one off. So like, I guess if I could boil all that down to one thing, attack them one at a time, each customer, and be really close to them. So
yeah, I love that. And the closer you are, the better, because I've learned when a customer says something, it's often good copy for your website. When a customer gives you a tagline, it's often better than your own, because it comes right from the mouth of the person that you're trying to sell to. So it's just an endless amount of things that you can learn from that. I love the personalization, love the one at a time, Jay. Really appreciate that. And yeah, I guess this is kind of a symbol for, oh my goodness, the internet's not working anymore. Shit. But I
wasn't sure.
That's awesome.
This could either be like, oh, that's a great point, or internet not working. One of the two.
One or the other, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Parting words of wisdom. Any plug that you want to make, Jay? Are you guys hiring right now? You're always hiring. Come on.
Yeah, we're in full swing. I think we have like 20 positions open. Well, when all this COVID hit, we put a hiring freeze on because we didn't know what was going to happen. Things actually slowed down for a little bit because I think the whole world didn't know what to expect. But now things are like, we're so fortunate. We're like blessed. Like it's I have a lot of friends in industries that are in different spaces, and it's not everyone's in the same boat, but e-commerce is booming. Like it's busier than ever. And so because we didn't hire for a couple months, we're in a bit of a trying to play catch up here. So, I mean, yeah. So like boldcommerce.com is where you can learn more about us. If you head over to, I think it's under more on the right-hand side, or resources, there's our career page. We are always hiring in Winnipeg, Austin, and now all over. So.
All right. And if people want to hear from you personally, you're a frequent tweeter and you're a frequent LinkedIner, right?
Yes. Those would be the platforms of choice.
Very good. Well, I really appreciate you taking the time to have this chat, Jay.
My pleasure.
I hope we got to something that was a little bit deeper, at least from the story that our listeners here will know. I love that nitty-gritty detail of how you actually make it happen in those earliest of early days, right? And telling those stories. So I appreciate it, and I'm looking forward to what you guys do next to change the game in commerce as you've been doing so far.
Oh man, my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me. It was a lot of fun.
We'll do it again sometime.